This is JadeCast, your gateway to traditional martial arts and Chinese culture. Brought to you by your host, Shuffle Jonathan Bluestein. Hello everyone and welcome back to JadeCast. Today I am going to share with you 3 unspoken success secrets of martial arts masters. And here I'm talking about things you may have not thought about, because typically when people talk about the so-called success secrets of martial arts masters, they tend to think of special techniques or unique training methods, something that has to do with the training, or otherwise with all manner of, marketing techniques and such. But this is not what I'm going to speak about today, which is why I call these 3 unspoken success secrets, because people typically do not discuss them. And these 3 unspoken success secrets of martial arts masters came to me via in-depth discussions of the arts with 3 esteemed colleagues of mine who are Master Yanghai from Canada, Master Neil Rippsky from Canada, and Master Professor Stephen Jakovitz from New York State. So I would gather that at least some of the people listening to my podcast are aware of Master Yanghai. He is a very prominent practitioner and teacher of the internal arts from Montreal, and he's been at it for many, many decades. As a young child, he was already picked up by his father, a master in his own right, who taught him the skills from, I think, the age of 9 or 12. And he was basically born into a family of martial arts and has links to a lot of the most famous internal martial arts masters in China of the 20th century. So now in the 21st century, Master Yanghai is trying to put the arts out there and to share from their wisdom with wider audiences. And I highly recommend that you take a look at his channel, where he's got a lot of lectures, and I'll link to it in this video's description. Well, in any case, many a time when I was discussing the martial arts generally, broadly, with Master Yang, he would tell me, one of the success secrets of martial arts masters is that they were actually pretty good businessmen. Now, in terms of being good businessmen, I think Master Yang was not solely talking about having a lot of students. You can make a pretty good so-called business, even though I personally don't see martial arts as a business, even if you've got 100 to 200 students, which is not a lot. However, what Master Yang is talking about is the ability of certain masters of the past and present to leverage business opportunities in order to promote their martial arts. After all, we all know these excellent, incredible masters whom nobody knows anything about. They keep to themselves, and that's a problem. They have difficulty propagating their style. Often this happens because people are just way too modest. And as I've written about in some of my books, modesty is actually an extreme. Tell you why. Everybody praises the virtues of modesty, but nobody wants to buy her products. Let me repeat that. Everybody praises the virtues of modesty, but nobody wants to buy her products. Now, what do I mean by that? Modesty is an extreme. Modesty is on the other side of the scale from vanity. We think and we tell other people and our children and our students that modesty is good and proper. But in actual fact, what we really seek and what we really desire is propriety, to do the proper thing under the circumstances. If one is too vain, that's not good. If one is too modest, that's not good either. We want to be appropriate to the situation. And what happens, unfortunately, in traditional martial arts culture is that practitioners and teachers tend to be either too vain or too modest, and often teachers are too modest and then they don't want to so-called market themselves. And what happens? Well, they've got a lot to give, but very few hear about it. So, being too modest is a common sickness of traditional martial arts teachers and is one of those things which prevent them from being successful businessmen and putting their art out there. Now, one other thing commonly mentioned to me by Master Yang is that successful traditional martial arts teachers always knew how to pick some students which would help them spread the art. And those students that I'm speaking of may have not been the best martial artists. They may have not been the best students in terms of, listening to their teacher, following the instructions to the T, but those students had their own popularity, reputation, or connections. For example, there are teachers in China and abroad who opted to have students who were good authors, who were famous for writing books. And those students may not have been their best students, but they helped because they brought in their reputation to the school. And the school took a ride, like on a wave, on those authors' reputations. And by these means, it was possible to better propagate the martial art in question. Now, the thing here is to be wise enough to recognize that not all students are going to be great students and not rule out some people just because they do not excel in the martial arts or do not listen as well as others. Because a smart martial arts teacher and a smart businessman knows that every person can be put to good use. And every person has in them some good qualities, not necessarily technical, of course, that can help the school grow and flourish. And it's up to the teacher sometimes to bring out those good qualities and to see within the students what opportunities lurk and how we can connect those positive qualities and natural skills and abilities of that students, often outside of the martial arts school, in order to promote the teachings. And by the way, since I mentioned students who are also authors, I'm not hinting at myself here. I am hinting at certain specific, very well-known Chinese martial arts teachers who were also authors, some of whom were selected and given more attention by their teachers because of their skills as authors. I can provide you with another very interesting historical example. We have the famous master of internal arts from 20th century China whose name was Li Zuni. Li Zuni was a master of Xin Yichuan primarily, and he had a bodyguard agency. Now, back in the day in China, they did not have a reliable mailing service. And what happened was when you wanted a certain package, a piece of merchandise, or even a few letters to arrive safely at a certain destination, and they were of importance and they were worth a lot of money, what you would do is you would hire a bodyguard service to keep watch over your caravans as they were carrying those precious things traveling from one location to another. And this famous master of the internal arts, Li Zuni, had this bodyguard service where he himself and his men would travel along these caravans and keep watch so they wouldn't be robbed by bandits and hoodlums. Now, Li Zuni was a very good businessman in that sense, in thinking that he could merge the business of martial arts instruction with his bodyguard service. Now, what happens today, usually, when you have a bodyguard company, is that the people running the company tend to send their men to be trained in martial arts and the use of weaponry outside of the company. They hire the services of another company and other teachers to teach them how to do various things. Or otherwise, they might have a shooting instructor within the company, again, someone hired from the outside to do that sort of work. However, in Lee Tsuni's bodyguard company, he himself and his top students would be the ones instructing the bodyguards in martial arts. So what he had was a martial arts school, essentially, a very big one, which was also a bodyguard company. Now that's very good business, and indeed, it kept the business going very well for several decades. Now, why is that a good business model? Just think about it. First of all, you're training your own men, so you're responsible to how good they're going to be. Now, additionally, you're saving costs on other people that you don't need to hire to train them. You create a sense of camaraderie and a better sense of tradition, community, professionalism, etc. Overall, it works great. But, nowadays it's a difficult type of business model to pull off. Back in the day, it was viable. So, this was one commonly unspoken of so-called success secret of traditional martial arts masters. Now, let us talk about another one, and this one I got from my colleague Master Neil Rippsky. So, we have so much hostility and animosity in martial arts and specifically in traditional martial arts. And what we see is, unfortunately, online, so many people busying themselves with writing bad things of one another. There is a group, for instance, that I know of on Facebook nowadays that is basically almost solely dedicated to tarnishing the good name and reputation of a certain teacher. Now, granted, that teacher is a notorious, infamous character. He's got his good sides and a lot of bad sides, and he does attract a lot of negative attention. But the very thought that there would be a group of people, I'm talking about probably over 100 people, who really take the time, to write negative things about this one particular person on a weekly basis. Come on, folks. This is not traditional martial arts. This is just bad politics, and we could do better. So how can we do better? That I learned from Master Neil Rippsky, and he says the following. Master Neil told me many a time, one of the success secrets of the martial arts masters of old is that they worked with their colleagues towards mutual benefit. They taught and advertised each other. So very important, folks. Look, we all have our own teachers, right? But how do we keep progressing? The majority of us cannot stick with one teacher for a lifetime. And you know what? Even if we could, that's not always healthy. We have to diverge. We have to try new things. We have to gain new insights and perspectives. And how do we gain these? By going and studying with more than one teacher after a certain period and a certain level of expertise, but also by drawing insight and knowledge and ability by interacting with our colleagues. So, one of those unspoken success secrets of martial arts masters is basically knowing how to build healthy relationships with skilled and knowledgeable colleagues and working together to teach one another instead of working to tarnish each other's good name and reputation. That's much healthier and more useful, wouldn't you say? Additionally, in the martial arts, as we all know, the best advertising comes from word of mouth. And what is the best word of mouth out there? The one coming from experts. And who are the experts? Your colleagues, of course. So if you have classes, seminars, articles, books, products, whatever you're offering, the best people to recommend them are your own colleagues. So wouldn't it be best for you to keep on good relations with those colleagues so you can speak well of what they are offering so they could do the same for you, rather than going online all day writing bad and negative things about people whose movements you don't like or whose actions you're not fond of? Well, you know what? We can just ignore these people. We don't have to start crusades against them. They're going to carve their own karma, and that's not for us to interfere in unless they are literally hurting directly people whom we personally know. Now, the third success secret of martial arts masters is that they have a cat. Well, not really, but I like cats and they're great. No, the third success secret from martial arts masters came to me from Master Professor Stephen Jakovitz, a teacher, a colleague, a mentor of mine, and that would be that a lot of these past masters had access to traditional medicine and commonly traditional East Asian medicine. So when I say traditional East Asian medicine, we're talking about basically traditional Chinese medicine that originally came from China, and then variants of it that are commonly found in Japan, Thailand, the Philippines, etc. in all over East Asia, basically. Now, why is it important that someone has access and knowledge of sometimes traditional East Asian medicine? Because this medicine specializes in maintaining and sustaining quality of life. So, when you have access to this medicine, you can take whatever physical strengths and tendencies and inclinations and skills and abilities that you're already developing and enhance them dramatically. For example, perhaps the most common usage that we see in traditional martial arts is that of Diadagio. Diadagio is a hitful wine, or in Cantonese it's known as Diadagio. And hitful wine, hitful medicine are basically formulas of traditional East Asian herbs that are brewed commonly as a wine in alcohol, but can also be taken sometimes internally, decocted in a sort of soup. And these formulas, the Diadagio, the hitful wine, help the body recover from physical trauma. Originally, medically, they were invented and used for when people have the daily life common physical trauma that people tend to get when they get a hit or they fall, hence hitful wine. When they break a bone, when they have a hematoma or hematomas on their skin, hence blood clots near the surface of the skin from getting hit, when they got involved in accidents, say a chariot accident or nowadays a car accident, following surgery or even just before the surgery, during the surgery, etc. Now, in recent centuries, or perhaps even prior to that, this type of medicine was picked up by traditional martial artists for their use so they could enhance their practice in a very simple manner. What we do is we take this wine and we apply it to our limbs, which we seek to strengthen and harden before we hit various objects. That those objects could be various hitting bags, heavy bags and such. Some people go to such extremes as rocks and stones, or they poke their fingers or their arms or their legs for bamboo or other things as such. If you're a martial artist, you're familiar with those things. Now, I'm not here to pass criticism or to tell you that you should do your body conditioning, strengthening, and hardening this or that way. I'm just saying, if you have access to this manner of medicine, the Diadagio, then it's possible to achieve far superior conditioning. Because this type of medicine keeps your limbs healthy with some very arduous practice, which can be painful and could even be dangerous long term for one's health. And they make sure that you can practice such things sometimes every day, practice hard, and gain extraordinary results over years and decades that wouldn't have been possible if you did not have Diadagio. Which is why in traditional Chinese martial arts and other traditional arts, we see that a lot of people use Diadagio, and it's commonly sold. It's sold online in a lot of websites. I have a colleague, Sifu Dale Dugas from Texas. He sells excellent Diadagio. Dale Dugas, you can look up his name. You spell it Daledugas, Dale Dugas. But you can find such things also in the various herb shops in Chinatowns. There are ones produced in factories, that are ones that are handmade by various practitioners and experts. It's very easy to get, but you do need to know which one you need to use. And there are, of course, numerous recipes that float around in various martial arts traditions out there and are passed on from teacher to student. The Diadagio, nonetheless, are just one example out of many, because the use of traditional medicine is not only very common in East Asia, but can be utilized for a wide variety of situations. Now look, some of us are born with what you'd call in Chinese medicine a very strong constitution. A person born with a very strong constitution has been blessed with some genetic gifts from his or her parents. They had a good time during the 9 months in their mother's belly. Their parents were strong and not so sick or not sick at all. And therefore, they had what we would call a head start in life. Such people live a long life. They live past their 80s, they're past their 90s sometimes. They are vigorous throughout their lifetime. Very few things bother them. They have a strong mentality. They have charisma. They have a strong personality. They very seldom get sick. They can practice every day with little rest. Maybe some of them don't need as much sleep at night. And we tend to see a lot of those people become very prominent martial artists or athletes. Or sometimes they don't, but they abuse their bodies quite a bit with alcohol, smoking, drugs sometimes. Maybe they don't get as much sleep. Maybe they are having too much sex. They have a very colorful life and relationships with a lot of stress and tension and a lot of emotions running around. But nonetheless, they somehow don't die young from all of those things which should have killed them, because they have strong constitutions. And those rare individuals have won life's lottery, so to speak, and they don't require much support. However, that makes for maybe 1 in 100 or 1 in 200. I don't know the statistics. The majority of us were not born with an exceptional constitution. Sometimes we have certain constitutional strengths, like a very strong heart, a very strong spleen, a very strong liver, or several of these, but not overall. And that means that throughout life, we would need a little bit of support if we are going to push ourselves very hard. Now, of course, the traditional martial arts themselves are a form of medicine, but they're not sufficient, because health overall is comprised from at least the following triangle of physical exercise, sleep, and diet. And it's very good if you physically exercise well and correctly, but you still need a lot of good sleep and a very good diet. And if you do not complete that triangle, then at one point or another, you're gonna gain a sickness, and a chronic one at that, or several. You bet that's gonna happen before you're 50. If you don't take care of all of those things I mentioned: good exercise, good sleep, and good diet. Now, but there's another thing that could turn this triangle into a rectangle, which is medicine, and specifically the use of traditional medicine. And I'm not going to speak of modern Western medicine. I've got a full belly about it. If you would like to learn more about the similarities and differences between traditional East Asian medicine and modern Western medicine, this is thoroughly discussed in a book I would be releasing later in 2021 called Chinese medicine can heal you. Well, in any case, going back on the use of traditional East Asian medicine for benefiting our health and supporting our life and well-being long term, and especially in the martial arts, I have this to say. If you have access to good traditional East Asian medicine doctor or doctors, or if you happen to have yourself studied traditional East Asian medicine, whether it be traditional Chinese medicine, traditional Korean medicine, traditional Japanese medicine, etc., then you can make up for not having that inborn strong constitution and get that so-called head start or support that someone with a very strong constitution would have had. Or even if you are one of those lucky ones that has a strong constitution, that can push you even farther. Now, the thing is that people going about their daily lives don't know that they have a lot of chronic conditions brewing around, including cancer, by the way, that can be eliminated or supported with traditional herbal formulas, acupuncture, moxibustion, massage, etc. Or even something beneficial and wonderful such as chiropractic. And what is chiropractic, by the way? Chiropractic is traditional Western medicine, just so you know. So herein I'm also including chiropractic under the umbrella of traditional medicine that's very useful and beneficial for martial artists and people in general. In any case, the point being that whatever chronic conditions we are bound to have are typically brewing under the skin and in the flesh, oftentimes for years and decades. For instance, I don't know if you know this, but we all have cancer. You have cancer right now. I have cancer right now. Cancer cells come and go every single day of our lives. It's just that our bodies are able to kill most of those cancers when they're just the size of 1 cell, 10 cells, 100 cells before they grow. And this is why we never know they're there. But they're there, they happen, and the body takes care of them. But in order for us to alleviate the strain on our bodies, having to take care of all these bacteria and viruses and tiny cancers and all sorts of other things, digestive issues, you name it. All these little things that take away energy and effort from our bodies that could be put into our bodies being built to be better martial artists. These can be alleviated and supported by regularly taking single herbs or herbal formulas, or occasionally maybe once a month if you're not sick, getting an acupuncture treatment and such, a massage, moxibustion, chiropractic. Again, all of these things can be beneficial. And the advantage in going to a traditional medicine doctor is that these doctors are qualified, certified, and able to diagnose a lot of health issues when they're just there in the so-called brewing stage, before they manifest with severe symptoms. Also, as you know, we all suffer from the minor or occasional sprain and strains, right? As martial artists, we all are bound at one point or another to get some tendonitis, for instance. We're gonna pull a tendon here, pull a muscle there. We're gonna get a little bit of inflammation. Maybe once a long time ago we dislocated our shoulder. That could happen. And all of these little or major sprains and strains affect our martial arts practice. And in traditional medicines, there are wonderful methods for treating such things and making sure that we can prevent them from recurring. So to sum it up, without getting too deep into this, because I'm going to bring a lot of traditional Chinese medicine and traditional medicine experts in general to speak on the podcast in the future, having knowledge of or access to traditional medicine can significantly and dramatically improve the performance, ability, and long-term success in traditional martial arts practice, or actually any martial arts practice for that matter, which is the third unspoken of success secret of martial arts masters that I bring before you today. This is it for today, folks. And hey, if you enjoyed this lecture, don't forget, tap that subscribe button. And please feel free to share this lecture and others on the channel with friends, students, and colleagues. There are playlists on the channel for JadeCast lectures as well as JadeCast interviews. And if you're interested in additional fascinating information about traditional martial arts and traditional Chinese martial arts in particular, you're most welcome to go on your favorite Amazon website and look up my books, such as Research of Martial Arts, or The Martial Arts Teacher, and others. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you around next time.